And can I cuss on your podcast, Jim?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet. Where's roofers, right? And then they just
I better make a phone call, right? I better make a phone call. Wind damage. Like,
I've read snippets out of it, but yeah, that definitely resonates with me. So would he be ready to start like next week? Like, it wasn't even a fuck. And I wouldn't stop until 9 p.m. on Sunday night.
You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Aline, the co-author of the books Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and The Best Known Roofer. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the leading digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Do me a favor. Press that subscribe button, like, comment, share, leave us a review, do all of that stuff. If you want to take the conversation beyond what you're just listening to here, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. Here today we have Paul Nolan. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Jim. How you doing?
Good, man. Let's talk a little bit about how you got into roofing. How did you get into roofing, Paul?
Well, it was really a culmination of bad decisions that kind of led me to the path of roofing. I talked to a customer not long ago, and it was somehow some of my past transgressions came up, and he was like, I'm somewhat concerned. And I said, John, I think his name was John. This is probably 8-9 years ago. I said, John, do you think I went to school for this for 8 years, or do you think maybe I made some bad decisions and now I'm roofing houses? And he just started laughing. But, so I, in my early 20s, wasn't necessarily the most upstanding citizen, and had put myself in a position where I got most of my secondary education from the state of Georgia. And, when I was released back into the free world, there was really very limited options. Got bonded by the federal government like I was supposed to do, got familiar with all the tax credits that companies could have hiring felons, because I've got several drug felonies, and, it didn't do any good. And so I didn't have a dollar to my name. I was living with a friend for free. I was riding a bicycle around town trying to get a job. I finally got on with the trim carpentry crew, which I was extremely bad at trim carpentry. So I was more of a door carrier than a trim carpenter. They're like, Paul, just get the doors out of the basement, carry them up to the living room. And I'd saved up enough money to buy 1991 Honda Civic 5-speed, and I'm 6'3", 230. And so when I take a left-hand turn, that thing touches ground. And had a couple 100,000 miles on it. So I got a job doing what else would any respectable drug felon do, but get a job as a car salesman, because no one else will hire you. So I started selling cars. And one day, this was back in 2008, so there was a gas shortage and there was dust balls rolling around the car lot. And a gentleman came in. His name was Chad Connolly. I'll never forget his name. And he went to buy a Dodge Ram. And I'm looking at 3 months proof of income. He was a salesman for a company similar to mine now, named Roofing Systems of Atlanta. And I'm looking at his proof of income, and it's like 19,000, 21,000, 22,000, 3 months in a row. So what do you do? He said, I sell roofs. I was like, yeah, right, dude. Who's buying a fucking roof? And can I cuss on your podcast, Jim?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet. Where's roofers, right? And I said, well, who's buying a roof, dude? There's a gas shortage. The economy's about to crash. Like that. You're the only person that's been on the car lot in 16 days. And he was like, no, it's insurance restoration. The metro Atlanta area gets hit with, moderate hail and wind damage several times a year. And the insurance carriers pay to replace the roofs through what's considered a no-fault act of God claim or catastrophic claim. I was like, there's no fucking way that's legit. Right? Then your premium goes up. And he's like, no, the premiums can't go up. And of course, I'm more articulate with what I'm saying right now than I was back then. But he's like, no, your premiums can't go up because it's a CAT claim. And, with regards to catastrophic damage, premiums are based on the frequency of damage by zip code, which is why premiums on a 5,000 square foot house in South Florida are much higher than a 5,000 square foot house in Atlanta. It's already built in, blah, blah, blah. So that sounds like bullshit, but, I'm going to Google it. So I went home and Googled it. And at the time, my wife was an elementary school teacher. And I came home and I was like, I quit my job. And I'm not a very construction savvy individual, to be perfectly honest with you. And she's like, oh my God, we're going to starve. You can't even hang the numbers on the fucking mailbox. And I was like, I'm not going to build roofs. I'm just going to sell roofs. And, so she was not happy. So at the time I got on with the company, which Cedar Valley Exteriors, which was one of the largest insurance restoration roofers in the country at the time. And they hired me, and they, wanted me to work at Atlanta. And, hindsight's 2020. It all makes sense now, right? They were like, we'll never throw you to the wolves. And of course I had limited opportunities anyway. So they handed me a ladder and they were like, good luck. And so, I'm on roofs, I'm knocking doors all day. Hey, my name's Paul. I'm with Cedar Valley. We're doing free roof inspections in the area. And people are like, get a real job, fuck off. And, I was pretty persistent though, right? So I started really like fine tuning my pitch, and figuring out what would I want to hear, So my final pitch ended up being, hey, what's up? I'm Paul. And I've realized that people like to do business with people that are in high demand. So I would kind of like tell them, pretending I was too busy to even deal with them at the time. And I just happened to knock their door because I noticed it looked like they were home and it looked like their roof was old, and it seemed to make them feel more genuine, like they weren't just a number. And I had good results. So I'd knock the door and say, hey, I'm Paul. I'm with, Cedar Valley Exteriors. And honestly, I don't usually knock doors, and I can't do anything for you right now. I've got 15 minutes of downtime before my next inspection. I noticed your garage was open or your dog was in the lawn or whatever. So I figured you were home, and your roof is still much older, and I'm sure it suffered the same damage that the rest of these have. Again, I can't do anything right now, but we're usually here around the same time. And I would schedule an appointment. And, when I came back, it seemed like they were kind of inviting me back. So my closing ratios, went up pretty considerably. My ability to get roofs bought, though, was still pretty limited because I had no idea what I was doing. So I'll never forget. One time I climbed a roof and I'm circling what I thought was hail damage. And the adjuster's like, man, that's not hail. That's bird shit. I was like, oh, okay. And I was, and then I circled another. This was hilarious. I circled the next one. I was like, what about this? He's like, man, that's my fucking sweat drop, man. I was like, oh, goddamn. Well, what the fuck does hail look like? And so this adjuster kind of gave me a crash course. He suggested I go to Hague School, which I did, and it did help. But it turns out it's a 24-hour course that you pay $1,000 for them to teach you how not to pay for a roof. It's more geared towards insurance companies, but it did help me, have some level of knowledge. So that went on for probably 6 to 8 months, and I wasn't very good at it, like I said, for the first 3 or 4 months. And I'd work, 50 hours a week knocking doors, just trying to make it happen because I saw the proof of this guy that I sold a truck to. And I sized him up and I thought, shit, if I can be half as good as this guy, I'll make twice as much money as I make now and work, way less hours in the car business. And, my wife, I'd come home every night and she's like, how'd you do? I'm like, oh, man, I got a lot of good things working. And she's like, well, this seems like a fucking hobby because you get paid for a job. And I was like, yeah, it's going to work. It's going to work. And so then I had gotten to the point probably 7 or 8 months later, fall of 2009, where Cedar Valley had owed me, probably about $15,000. And we were in debt up to our ears with 26% credit card interest. I had a 400 credit score. She was on a teacher's salary, and Cedar Valley went bankrupt. And they screwed me out of, I got burned for the entire $15,000. And they had sold, the original owner of Cedar Valley had sold to some corporate partnership, and they didn't run it very well. And they went bankrupt. The guy that founded it was a good guy. He ended up taking it back over, but my time there had passed. They went bankrupt, and it was one of those feelings where, when you've done something wrong or something terrible happens and you just get physically sick for a minute to your stomach. Yeah. It was like that. I was like, holy shit, what are we going to do? And then I thought to myself, you know what? Fuck that. This isn't that hard. It's not like I'm rebuilding fucking nuclear power plants, right? This is asphalt shingled roofing. I mean, as long as I can sell it, I can find someone to build it. And so I found an installation crew, and I asked the guy, I said, hey, will you order materials for me? Because I have no idea how to order materials. I pay an extra $50 a job. And his name was Armando Resendez. He said, oh, yeah, my friend. And I started selling roofs on my own. Of course, I didn't have any money, and so I had to flip jobs. So I'd knock doors and, get roofs approved. And, the difference was back then, and now I use this to separate my current company from my competition because we don't collect anything up front. But, I lost a lot of deals back then because they were like, who are you? We haven't heard of you. You've been in business for a month, and, do you need money up front? And I was like, yeah, I do, actually. Of course I need money up front. How else am I going to pay for your labor and materials? And, and then of course it took 10 to 14 days for the checks to clear the bank because I was not a very established businessman or man for that matter. And so customers would say, well, how far out are you on your calendar? I'm like, I don't know, about 10 to 14 days, and that was the beginning of my career as an entrepreneur, as a roofing company owner. And we'd build one roof a month and then 2 roofs a month and then 5 roofs a month. And all the while we had to make sure that the procedures, the job process was really, really tight, and the supplements were getting in and the money was getting released because we couldn't afford to build the next one until we had the money back from the previous build. And so that was 2010, 2011, and now it's 2022, and we got to the point we build 30, 40, 50, and now we probably build, probably an average of 25 or 30 roofs a week. And so it's a very different life than I had a decade ago, and I owe it all to this industry. If it wasn't for this industry, if I hadn't gone to work that day selling cars and had that interaction, I might still be selling cars. My wife might still be a teacher. And back then we just, I always say we lived to work and we worked to live. We never saw each other. We worked crazy hours. We barely made any money. And we were just kind of slaves to the system. And so yeah, that's my story. That's how I got in the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's like, you saw an opportunity on someone else's paycheck, right? Like you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And then you put it all on the line for that potential, right? Because it was like, that was only a potential that you saw. You didn't know if it was real or not actually at the time, right? I think that a lot of times you need that faith in the outcome. How did you have faith in the outcome?
Well, I had the gift of not having a choice, really. Like the car business I was essentially starving in that industry back in 2009. No
one was buying. I mean, that was heart of the recession, right? Like that was, yeah.
I have 4 drug felonies. I was a car salesman. I didn't have my credit score was a 400, and some people. And honestly, it's a blessing in disguise because. I feel like I may have had the advantage over, some people because there was nowhere to go but up. Yeah. So if I had made this shift into this industry and I had one young son, he was probably 6 months old. And if I had made, this shift into this industry at the age of 40 with an 800 credit score and, a few tens of thousands in a savings account and a 401k and a guaranteed salary, and told my wife at that point, hey, I'm going to roll the dice and sell roofs, that might have been a bigger argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've always, in my personality, I've always preferred to be rewarded for my effort as opposed to my time, because I just have had too many jobs where I give 100% of myself because I feel like that's just in my character, and the person next to me does not, and we make the same amount of money. And so I would rather be rewarded for my efforts as opposed to my time. So I've always, I've always believed in myself. But again, a big part of the reason was I didn't really have any options. No one would hire me other than the car dealership. I live to work and work to live. I worked bell to bell, which is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday and every other Sunday. And I probably took home $2,500 a month. Now I probably make $2,500 an hour.
Yeah.
And it's kind of surreal still when I look back on it, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, because the older I get, the more that I realize that perspective is really the key to happiness. And I have a lot more money and a lot more stability now than I used to. I have a lot more freedom than most people, but it's all relative. I've changed my definition of success from, just making shit piles of money to really doesn't matter how much money you have. In my opinion, if you have enough money and enough freedom to live the life that you want to live the way that you want to live it, then you're successful. And that's a different number for everyone. Honestly.
For everyone. Yep. Yeah. For everyone. I think that there's something about that willingness to just take the leap and you burn the boats, right? Like, I guess you couldn't, like, there's sometimes like some people can work a job and kind of maybe, knock doors in the evening or something like that. But you were working bells at the car dealership. It was like, well, there's no way I could do two things at once. What are your thoughts? Like, that's the burning the boats, right? Like, burning the boats, like there's no going back. That's a mindset thing, right? And I like that how you express that is that you didn't have any other choice, right? There's something about that. It's like Damon John wrote a book called The Power of Broke.
Yeah,
I love that book. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's like,
but I've read snippets out of it. But yeah, that definitely resonates with me.
There's something to like making something because you have to.
Well, in my opinion, there's people in this world, and I say this a lot in my sales meetings, and here's the reality of it is, in my opinion, the majority of the world would rather be taken care of than be free. And it's a very select few people that are willing to take success or failure and put them both on their own shoulders. And I always tell my team, the last thing I want to hear anybody ever say is I tried my best. I don't give a fuck. I don't care if you tried. Either you hit the mark or you don't hit the mark. And whether you hit it or not is not really as important to me as if you own it. Just own it. Like, there was weeks where I got out and killed myself and my numbers were short. And, my sales team had some struggles a couple years ago. And I really rode their asses hard. And I was like, guys, you have to put in a certain level of effort. You have to have a certain level of commitment. Like, you have to be able to tell yourself, like, this is my goal and I'm going to hit the goal. And I used to ask them, I said, if I came in town, because I've been fortunate enough to be an absentee owner for the past 7 years and lived most of my life in beautiful sunny Florida and operate a company in other states. But I said, if I came in town and said that, my goal is 50 contracts this week with our sales team, and I went out in the field every day, do you guys think I'd hit my goal? And they were like, yeah, we do. And I said, okay, well, I mean, you don't have to kiss my ass. I'm the owner. I'm asking honestly, do you think I'd hit my goal? And they were like, yeah, don't you? And I said, I think that I would, but I can tell you this much. If I didn't, I'd come real fucking close. And I wouldn't stop until 9 p.m. on Sunday night. And if I didn't hit 50, it might be 47, it might be 43. It's going to be somewhere, but it ain't going to be fucking 25. I can tell you that much. Right? I know my potential. I know my market. I know what a realistic goal is. I set realistic goals, and then I go out and I structure a plan, and then I execute the plan. And a lot of what's missing in society, honestly, in my opinion, is people's ability to structure a plan, execute a plan, and own the results. And if I didn't get 50, if I had a boss at this point in my life, and I did go into whatever my territory was, and my goal was 50 with my sales team, and I hit 47, my boss said, you didn't hit 50. I'd say, you fucking ain't right, I didn't. That's all I got to say. Yeah. I don't need to say I tried my best. I don't need to say, but you don't know what happened with the weather, but our tire got flat. But, I really had to take a shit, right? I mean, I lost 2 hours of selling time because I didn't want to use the bathroom at the Amoco station. So I had to drive to Quick Trip, which is 30 minutes away through traffic. And then I got an argument with my girlfriend, and the people in this neighborhood were weird. You're not going to hear any of that shit. The answer is no, I didn't hit the goal. And you better fucking believe I'm probably going to hit it the following week, or again, come real damn close to it. And so I think anyone, and I like to tell my story because, I like to see people who have, in a lot of ways, this is a second chance industry. I like to see people who have, I think they have the best perspective, right? Who've made some bad decisions or have gotten involved into a life that they somewhat regret because they feel trapped. I like to see them take that leap of faith and put success and failure on their own shoulders and go out and fucking own it. And, those types of people, sometimes they just need the right inspiration or they need the right evidence. If I hadn't seen Chad Connolly's paycheck, I don't know if I would have been ready to take the leap. I mean, I may have, because again, I didn't have shit going on for myself, but it has a lot to do with self-determination. And are you the kind of person that wants to control your own destiny? Or are you the kind of person that wants to be, if you want freedom or security? And if you want freedom, this is the industry for you. And if you want security, you probably need to get a corporate job making $45,000 a year,
For sure. I have learned recently, or I've really come to this realization recently, that I don't think we all talk about effort and how you just got to put in the work, put in the time, put in the effort, put in this. I don't think most people understand the actual effort it takes to get the result that they're looking for. What effort does it take? Let's talk about, first of all, what would you consider a successful sales rep? Let's start on the sales rep side. I know you do a lot of training, you do a lot of educating on that, mentoring on that. What is a successful sales rep? What kind of numbers do they hit?
I mean, a successful sales rep is going to build in my opinion, between 7 and 12 roofs a month, consistently, month over month over month, right? You have some guys that'll build 15, 20 roofs a month, and that's not sustainable really.
Yeah.
For an individual. 7 is sort of on the low end. 12 is sort of on the high end, but I like guys to really shoot for 10 installs a month. And whether they get that through, door knocking or referrals or, whatever their means is, if you're installing 10 roofs a month and they're reasonable sized roofs, then that's a pretty successful guy. That guy should make $250,000 a year at least. And I consider a successful sales rep, and some guys are better at running leads, but a lot of my guys run leads, and I have a lot of love for my team. I owe a lot of my life to these guys, and we're a good team. But some of them, they just won't knock doors. Yeah. And they just refuse to knock doors. And I try to tell anybody who's up and coming, I mean, I own the company. I mean, I own a decent sized company now, and I'm not too proud to knock doors. So it blows my mind when I hear guys that say, well, I really want to come on board with Regal and I want to be a part of the Regal team, but I don't knock doors. I'm a closer. I don't knock doors. Motherfucker, what? What do you mean you don't knock doors? You're a closer, dude. Who do you think you are? You should go out and knock doors. And if for no other reason, right? Anybody that runs leads, I'm sure, you've probably had enough experience with sales guys. There's a tendency to bitch about the leads, right? Now, if I'm giving guys home advisor leads, I would expect them to bitch about the leads, right? Because they're just garbage. I'm basically sending them on a carousel drive around the city for no reason because home advisor sold me a bunch of bullshit, right? But if it's a door knock lead and I'm paying good money to leads generators to go out and specifically target a certain size home in a certain area with a certain age roof, it's a decent lead. But we still hear, sales guys, we're all, probably me included too, we're somewhat prima donna, right? And so I hear them complain about the leads, and my answer is always, knock your own fucking doors. But you'd be amazed what I hear. I hear guys say, and just comparing it to Metro Atlanta, which is where our primary office is, I got guys that live in Hickory Flat or Woodstock, which is 30 minutes north of Atlanta City Center, right? And they'll go run a lead down in Fairburn, which is probably an hour south of Atlanta, right? So they're willing to drive an hour and a half one way to run a lead on a 22 square roof, and they get there and they say, Paul, this lead sucks. This person has a $2,000 deductible, the roof's only 22 squares, blah, 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 blah. My answer is always, why don't you knock your own doors? And generally speaking, the comeback is, I don't have time to knock my own doors. And then I bring to their attention, but you just drove 3-hour round trip to run a fucking lead on a 22 square roof. What do you mean you don't have time to knock doors? You live in a gravy hole. You could have gone out of your driveway and spun around in a circle with your eyes closed and thrown a stone and hit a roof that's viable to be replaced and knock the door, but you didn't want to do it because you're stuck and you don't want to overcome your fear. Right? There's a certain level of fear that comes with knocking doors, but again, it comes back to, do you want freedom or security? So a successful sales rep, in my opinion, knocks their own doors. And when you knock your own doors, guess what? And I tell them this, pretty frequently as well. You're a fucking island. You are hard to control. If you knock your own doors, generate your own leads, build your own roofs, you are extremely valuable to me or anyone else because you are an island. I will kiss your ass. I will basically let you do whatever the fuck you want to do because you're bringing business to me that I would otherwise not have. If you're running my leads, then I control you. essentially you're at my mercy. So even though it's roofing and you still have a lot more freedom and you have the ability to make a great living, you are still at some level, being controlled. And so successful sales reps in this industry, in my opinion, aren't afraid to knock their own doors. They're problem solvers. They're shooting for, 7 to 12 builds a month. And it's consistency. You build 10 roofs a month, 3 months in a row, and then you shit the bed for 3 months and decide you're going to go on a vacation to Mexico like some kind of baller before you have a savings account. And while your credit cards are maxed out, you're going to find yourself scraping and clawing to get back to where you need to be. So, there's a select few people. And if someone comes into this industry and they're not afraid to work and they're not afraid to knock doors and they're not afraid to climb roofs, which is really a pretty rare combination. My father, when I used to get frustrated with my sales team a few years back, he's like, Paul, just get rid of the guys that frustrate you and just hire new ones. I said, Dad, this is like headhunting for doctors. I said, you got to find a guy, you have 100 people in the interview. And you say, number one, are you comfortable at door-to-door sales? And 90 of them walk out of the room. And then the remaining 10 that are comfortable with door-to-door sales, you say, are you comfortable climbing that roof over there? And it's a 12-12 two-story access. And another 5 of them walk out of the room. Now you got 5 people left. And out of those 5 people left, half of them are probably drug addicts, which is, hey, I don't judge. I've got my own issues. Yep. Which means that oftentimes they are not consistent. They're not accountable. So they may be a rock star 1 month and disappear for 3 months. And, that's kind of the nature of this business. I've been sober now for 8 years, but I don't judge. Drug addicts are sometimes the best sales guys. But just to give you a funny story of the industry, we had a guy that his girlfriend had done some really shady things at the company and we had to get rid of him. He was a great salesman, and he came back. He was like, I want my job back. And I said, man, everybody equates you with her. And, I can't really bring you back unless the team votes to bring you back. And you probably have to come in and apologize. I said, I don't hold a grudge, and he said, all right, well, fuck that. I don't want to come back. I'm not going to apologize. I said, all right, that's cool. He said, do you know anybody that might be hiring? I said, yeah, I'll refer him to a buddy of mine. And my buddy called me. This is roofing in a nutshell. And he goes, I heard from your guy. I said, yeah. He goes, is he a good salesman? I said, yeah. He goes, does he do drugs? I said, yeah. He goes, does he do a lot? I said, fair amount. He goes, what drugs? I said, meth. He goes, all right. So would he be ready to start like next week? Like, it wasn't even a fight. So what if he does meth and he's a good salesman? And obviously, that's a guy, that particular company has their own drug tests once a month and they have certain standards that they have to uphold. And we all do, right? But it's roofing. And so we're not unfamiliar with working with guys that are struggling with, with addiction or struggling with other things. Because again, it's a second chance industry, but it's a pretty forgiving industry. And if someone's willing to work and they've got what it takes, obviously we don't want somebody high on a roof, but if it's something, somebody that can be worked with and maybe shown a different way, it's like no other industry I've ever seen. So successful sales guys are hungry, not afraid to knock doors, shoot for 7 to 10 builds a month, and are willing, to be honest with themselves and try to improve on themselves.
So one thing I heard there is like, you're shooting for that 7 to 10, 7 to 12, trying to hit the 10 every month. From that, but you also said that if you go and take that vacation and then you have to come back and rebuild that, it in some ways it's a pipeline business, right?
Absolutely.
It's keeping the pipeline full that I think people miss out on a lot of times, right? Like you have to understand that you have to watch your pipeline to know what the future looks like for yourself, right? For your paychecks as a sales rep, and you have to watch your sales reps' pipelines from an ownership standpoint to be able to, kind of forecast where the company revenue is going, right? What does a healthy pipeline look like for a rep?
I mean, a healthy pipeline, in my opinion, is really just having a presence in a multitude of different neighborhoods, whatever you're shooting for, right? If it's a guy that's working part-time because he's working during the day as a school teacher or something, right? And he's shooting for 5 builds a month, right? That's his goal. If he's got a presence in 3 different subdivisions, and each one of those subdivisions realistically, the guy's going to build 40, 50 roofs a year, right? But if he's got a good solid presence in a subdivision, and that subdivision's got 100 houses, and he's got another subdivision he's got a solid presence in, and it's got 100 houses, and he's got another subdivision he's got a presence in, and it's got 100 houses, that guy's pretty well set for the next, 12, 24, even potentially 36 months, because he has adequate storm damage, he has adequate territory to work, and as long as he has a strong presence in that neighborhood, he has what he needs to continue to generate what he wants to generate, right? If it's a full-timer, a guy that's shooting for, let's just say 10 builds a month, right? You just use a round number. He's going to need to have a presence probably in 3 to 5 subdivisions, right? That have more houses than that, right? That might have, a couple hundred viable homes in it. And, and the pipeline, guys get... So the one Achilles heel for a successful door-to-door salesman is that they always have the ability to generate business out of nowhere, right? They have that ability to create what I always say, create something out of nothing. So you can take me off and drop me in a desert, and I can usually create something out of nothing. I wasn't gifted with a lot of things in life, but that's one thing I've always been able to do. And it's just this. You just got to have hustle, right? And so a pipeline looks different. If it's strictly a referral business, it's a guy that just doesn't want to knock doors. He's just masterful at referrals. Then his pipeline needs to be, dropping off donuts at the local, local State Farm agency once a week, and with his card and having a 10-minute conversation. If he's a door knocker, he needs to be out, at least in my opinion, at least 3 nights a week. I'd prefer that they just knock doors Saturday and Sunday. From noon to 4, noon to 5, I'd say noon to 4 max. Because if you're anything like me, my brain is pretty much tapped after about 3 hours. If I go out knocking doors, I'm not there to fuck around. I tell my reps all the time, like, these guys are like, I killed myself last night. I'm like, nah, let me guess what happened. You planned on being at your territory at 4:30 so you could miss traffic. Something came up. You left your house at 4:30 instead. You got stuck in Atlanta traffic. You drove an hour and a half in traffic, so you got to your neighborhood at 6 p.m. You started knocking for 10 minutes, but then you had to pee. So you went to the Quick Trip, which is 30 minutes away because the Amica is disgusting. You get there, you got a Chicago hot dog, which took you 5 minutes to make. You argued with your girlfriend for 15 minutes. You got back in the car, drove back to the neighborhood. By that time, it's 7:30. It's starting to get dark. You knocked 10 more doors. 5 of them were home. 3 of them were teenagers. 1 of them was Allstate. You said, fuck this. This is a terrible night. You got in your car and you drove home. And you left your house at 4:30. You got home at 10 o'clock at night. And you're driving home with a 1,000-yard stare, feeling like you just worked your ass off. And the reality is you didn't do shit but waste your time. And that's my phone ring. That's the Magnum PI theme song. Isn't that great? a successful pipeline for a door-to-door salesman is, knock three days a week. Continue continue getting referrals. Both of the door knockers and the guys that work referrals real hard should all work referrals at addendums, but the door knockers tend to struggle a little bit more because, again, they always have that ability to create something out of nothing. So I tell these guys, I'm like, hey, when you go to sign the addendum contract and pick the colors, if you've got an adjusters meeting at 11:15, maybe show up at the addendum signing in the neighborhood down the street at 10:15 instead of 10:45, so that you can spend an extra 15 minutes explaining to them that your primary source of income is referrals. And if they are comfortable with what you've done for them and they think they have friends or family in their neighborhood, right? Because you don't want to go to granny's house 3 hours away, that could benefit from what you've done for them, please give them give you their name, phone number, or address, or just point out it's the blue house down the street. And if you contract that person, you'll negate $250 or whatever they owe. And you write it on a marketing referrals contract. And let's face it, people don't like to pay their deductible, right? We get used as free collection agencies by insurance carriers for collecting deductibles. And insurance adjusters are not great oftentimes at explaining that we collect the deductibles. And we're not allowed to cover deductibles, and we're not allowed to pay deductibles. Well, There's nothing illegal about paying somebody for doing something for you that's totally unrelated to the insurance claim, right? Marketing or giving you a referral. If you give me a referral to your neighbor, I can give you $250. Now, if I say, hey, I'm going to pay $250 your deductible, I'm probably breaking some law somewhere. If I say, hey, thanks for the referral, here's $250, and you choose to use that $250 towards your deductible instead of at the grocery store, that's not my fucking problem. So, to keep that pipeline is just, you can still go on vacation once a month, but you have to make sure that you know the days you're going to work at the beginning of the week. You know the weather. If you plan on working Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, but it's raining all 3 days and it's sunny on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you should probably change the days you're going to work. And know the days you're going to work, know the weather, and then the days that you're going to work, you need to go out. You need to do whatever you do. Drop off donuts at agencies, knock doors, sign your addendums and work referrals really hard. However you want to do it, set up a fucking sign at an intersection, which I wouldn't recommend, but whatever it takes to keep that pipeline full. But knocking doors is, you can't beat it. That's the best return in probably in any residential sales industry. It
is. It's the fastest way to a sale.
It's the fastest. I had a guy in Memphis.
Yeah. Huh? It's that's what I always say. It's the fastest way to a sale.
I had a guy give out 2,000 flyers. He goes, man, I killed it today. His name was Reed. He goes, I passed out 2,000 flyers. I said, you could have knocked 15 doors and gotten a better result because no one is going to call you. I said, but I appreciate the brand recognition because now they're going to recognize the logo when someone else knocks on their door. But no, they're not calling you, man. It's just the way it happens.
That's what I get asked that a lot from the marketing side, right? Like it's, what can we do to get our, marketing up and running? Everyone's looking for these magic pills, right? Like that, but there are none.
The magic pill is knocking doors.
It's knocking doors. It is. It's honestly not it's getting out there and putting yourself in front of, that's the fastest way to put yourself in front of customers who need your services right now, especially you pull a hail trace and you go, okay, this is where I need to go today. You'll know you can, it's not challenging to find the people that need your services. Right. And from a door knocking perspective, but even in a retail market, right. There are neighborhoods in retail markets that have older homes.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. You can target neighborhoods. It really is the fastest way. You talked about building a solid presence in a neighborhood, like as a sales rep. So that solid presence, of course, is going to include door knocking. What else is included in your thoughts in that solid presence in that neighborhood?
Well, next door is a big, that's a big help. If I were still in the field, I don't think that I would be working in neighborhoods where I was not insistent that I was on the next door page, having all my customers write reviews for me on next door. Yard signs are huge. I always tell people,
Yep.
I got guys that, that I always tell them, like, guys, our logo is black and yellow. I'm a Georgia Bulldogs fan, but we got Georgia Tech, Georgia Yellow Jackets colors, right? Just is what it is. But you pull into the neighborhood. I said, you put a yard. Say, guys, that one of the easiest ways to get business is you pull into a neighborhood and you have one yard sign up. Let's say a homeowner's coming home from work and they see 1 yard sign. They don't notice. They come home the next day and there's 2 yard signs. They don't notice. They come home the next day and there's 5. And they're going, wow, that company's got some stuff going on. And all the while, all those inspections you do, you leave no room for doubt. Don't use soapstone, right? Guys love to use soapstone. Man, I saw this just using soapstone. That's what the real pros use. I don't get it in my hands. It's fucking, nobody sees soapstone. Half of my marketing is, I tell my team, if you're not on the roof writing the words wind damage with letters the size of your torso, right? And then putting little W's on each shingle with wind damage, and marking hail damage the size of your torso with each letter, so that every person that comes home from work sees a whole bunch of marks on a roof. And let's not leave it up to their inferencing skills. Let's just tell them, here's wind damage on your neighbor's roof. Here's hail damage on your neighbor's roof. They're going to see it every day they pull in the neighborhood until it rains, right? So mark those roofs up, make it look like a fucking elementary school hopscotch board, And then you put a sign in every yard, and eventually people will come in and pull in from work, and they're like, they see one sign, they register nothing. They see 3 signs, they register black and yellow. They see 5 signs, they register Regal. They see 6 signs, and they start noticing roofs. And they see 8 signs, and they're like, man, these guys got a lot of business. And the next day they pull in, and they're like, they see 9 signs, and they're going, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I want in on it. And then they just start
better make a phone call, right? I better make a phone call. Wind damage. Like,
it's all over. Or those are the easiest door knocks. Once you have the presence in the neighborhood, you knock the doors. And we make our canvassing team knock our adjusters meetings. You got Liberty Mutual van out front all lettered up, and 4 people on the roof, and Regal trucks all lettered up. What better time to knock on the neighbor's door and say, hey, yeah, the Smiths, Liberty Mutual's inspecting their roof. I was just up there, and I looked across and noticed you're missing a shingle too. Have we taken a look at your roof yet? No, we can't do it right now because we got to finish up over here. But you here tomorrow, or however you want to play it. And then during the installation, right? You got a bunch of commotion. You got a sign in the yard. So there's a lot of things that can be done to help maintain that presence. And again, a lot of it is just entrepreneurial spirit, and a lot of it is learned. If you learn these things, then you apply them in the field, and you're not a lazy ass that just runs through your pipeline and then has to scratch and claw to reestablish one because you went on a 3-week vacation to Tulum. You're going to make it in this world. I mean, one of my motivations I first got into business, I told my wife, I said, we're going to be able to go on vacation once a month. We can go on a 3 to 5 day vacation once a month. My pipeline will never dry up. I will always be able to go on vacation. Wow, what a miracle. My whole life I went on vacation, 5 years, once a year at best. And, so it's just working smart and having that presence.
So now from an owner's perspective, how do you keep the sales reps' goals in line with the company goals?
The sales reps, it depends on whether they're 1099 or W-2, right? If they're a W-2 sales rep, then they have a quota. And that's how you keep them in line with the company goals. If they're a 1099, you kind of have to understand what their motivations are. So I tell my team leaders in various different markets, they're like, how am I going to get more out of this guy? I'm like, who are you talking about? So-and-so. I'm like, well, he's mid-50s. He's already retired from the military. He's got a steady income. He does whatever he wants. He's only going to build 5 roofs a month. He doesn't want any more, right? Now on the other hand, you got this kid who needs a company vehicle or needs to borrow money for a down payment on a truck who, he's a 1099, but you can still really control him. He needs a draw. So, okay, if you need a draw, we got a production-based draw for you. We want you to file 4 a week and send in, 2 process requests a week, which is going to put you on track to build 8 roofs a month. And each one of those filed claims, it gets you a $250 draw, and each process request gets you a $750 draw, or something along those lines. And so it's really it's an industry that unless you have a W-2 model, you really have to motivate the individual. It has to be a lot of individualized pay structures and kind of what I always tell my team is don't hold them to the same expectation you hold yourself to. It's not fair to you or them. You'll drive yourself crazy. Hold them to what you feel like a realistic expectation for them is. And that's a lot harder, a lot easier said than done. We have sales managers that just pull their hair out because they're still holding everyone. These people are the sales. If to make it to a management role, you are probably somewhat of a workaholic,
Yeah.
And so if you're holding your team to the same level of expectations you're holding yourself to, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And, so and one other little thing I tell guys is I'm like, hey, if your kid's college is paid for, your home is paid off, your retirement is funded, do whatever the fuck you want. If it's not, and it's nice outside, get your fucking ass out and work. Right? Yeah. If you need a draw, get your ass out and work. If you're a W-2 with a quota, get your ass out and work. That's the kind of people we want to attract. People that are attracted to freedom instead of stability.
So do you run different versions? Do you run W-2 and 1099 reps out of your different offices, or
we have?
And how do you decide which which way to go with that?
A lot of it just depends on the personality and how established they are in life. I mean,
okay,
again, it's during the interview process, we kind of try to discern where they would fit in best. If they need a lot of attention, and they're going to consume a lot of our resources, they're solely working, for Regal, which most of the guys even 1099 solely work for Regal as well. But it's funny. There's no silver bullet to pass the litmus test of determining whether it's a 1099. We could have a whole nother podcast on that, 1099 compared to W-2. But if they're a 1099, they really should have their own LLC. If they do take a draw, they should be paying interest on that draw. We personally don't have non-competes, right? So you could sell somewhere else if you want. We expect you to sell through us because we probably give the highest draws. We probably pay the highest commissions because my philosophy has always been if we pay more and treat people better than the competition, they don't go anywhere else. And it's kind of like a real estate agency, right? If you're a 1099 for Coldwell Banker, you're not just going to go slip a few through Remax, right? It's not how you do it. And if somebody wants to, I've had guys, they're like, hey, my friend owns another roofing company. I was going to build through him. I said, I'm not going to tell you can't. But what I will tell you is if you build through someone else, then you have to be an island. Then you don't get Regal leads. You can't have access to Job Nimbus. You can't have access to the calendars. You can't have access to all of this proprietary information that we have within the company because you're working for a competitor that's not responsible of us, to let you have that access where a competitor could potentially benefit from it. And usually that conversation kind of is enough to fizzle out their desire to sell for someone else. But again, it's if you pay more money and you treat people better than your competition, why would they want to sell somewhere else anyway? It would make sense,
For sure. What we talked a little bit a while ago about being catastrophically unorganized.
Yeah.
And what did that? How was that? And how did you get that together in your business?
So, throughout my childhood, teenage, and early adulthood years, I was that's the best description. I was catastrophically unorganized. I didn't even know the combination to my locker in high school, right? I just had a giant bag full of books. And when I completed an assignment, I would literally just take a piece of paper and shove it in the backpack. I look back on it, I think, what the fuck was wrong with me? How did I, and it showed too. I graduated high school with a 1.8 GPA. That's embarrassing. That's a D+ average. That is insane. I mean, what a shame. I can't believe I can graduate. I mean, who graduates with a 1.8 GPA? I got into Georgia Southern College too, which is a fucking mirror.
Even crazier, right?
Don't take anybody, I guess. I didn't do too bad there. I just ran out of money. I was selling newspaper subscriptions for the Savannah Morning News that changed the pay structure. That's another story. But so I was always able to sell my way out of any problems, right? I started in door-to-door sales when I was 18, selling newspapers, and I've sold magazines and security systems, and I've sold steaks and fish out of the back of a truck. And I've sold a number of things because once I found door-to-door sales, I thought to myself, I love being rewarded for my effort instead of my time. And I would get burnt out, when I was 18, 19, 20, 25, whatever, taking these jobs. And I'd be like, you know what, fuck this. I'm tired of people cussing me out. I'm tired of knocking doors in the burning heat, in the freezing cold, in the rain. I'm tired of people telling me to get a real job. I'm just going to get a 9-to-5 like everyone else. I'm tired of working weekends and I want my weekends off, and I'm going to be like everyone else. I'm just going to be normal. And I get a 9-to-5 and then I'd go to my job for a week or two or whatever. And then, sure enough, at some point through the day, I'd be like, hey, to my boss, I'm going to use the restroom real quick. And they're like, there's some incident some incident similar to this. And they're like, you can't go right now. And I'm like, fuck? I can't believe I have to ask another man to use the bathroom. And he said no. And it was little things like that. You show up 3 minutes late and you get lectured in an office for 30 minutes about punctuality. And you're looking at the guy who's your boss at this 9-to-5 thinking, I don't think you're making great life decisions either, motherfucker. And here you are lecturing me. You know how much time you've spent lecturing me? We lost 27 minutes of productivity to your lecture. Well, hell, we only lost 3 because I was late. And you can take the 3 because I clocked in anyways. I didn't get paid for them. And, and eventually those 9-to-5s just never work for me. I just don't want to be told what to do. I want to reap the rewards of my efforts as opposed to my time. And I don't want to be treated like a second-rate citizen. And so anyway, in roofing, I was still catastrophically unorganized in roofing. And I went out and I closed a bunch of deals. And I had 3 jobs that I was always great at closing deals because I always sell my way out of a problem. And I had 3 jobs that were good-sized jobs that I would have made probably, $8,000 on, which is monumental to me at the time. And I forgot to call them back after I got them approved by the insurance, and like 3 weeks had gone by. And I called all of them on the same day, and they're like, well, we didn't hear from you. So another company came by, and we contracted with them. I had already had a contingency with them. Yeah, I could have threatened them and said, will you sign my contingency, blah, blah, blah. The reality was I was a fucking slacker, and I was unorganized. And so I cost myself a lot of money that I couldn't afford to lose at that juncture in my life. And I fucking vowed that day that I would never, ever let being unorganized cost me money again. And so that day, I was still at a BlackBerry. I went and bought manila folders and bins. And every night I got home, it drove my wife nuts. She was like, you're in that office for an hour and a half when you get home. I said, but I'm never chasing my tail because every day is maintenance. As long as you maintain every day, staying on ball is easy. When you I tell people, again, as you get older, things make more sense. The real freedom goes to the people who have the most self-discipline. It's somewhat of a conundrum, right? That is, if you are not self-disciplined, you will eventually run out of freedom and you'll eventually run out of money. You won't be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it because you will have put yourself in a position where you can't afford to. And so I learned that lesson that day, and I lost more money that day than I probably made in the first, 25 years of my life. I don't know about that, but I lost, probably almost $10,000 that day simply because I was unorganized. And the hardest part is scouting the neighborhood, knocking the door, getting the inspection, meeting the adjuster, getting it approved. I'd already done all the hard work. The heavy lifting was over, and I fucking shit the bed. So I vowed that I would, and I see guys all the time. They're like, hey, I want a shot at management. I said, are you organized? And some of my guys are honest, some of them aren't. Yeah, I'm pretty organized. Okay, cool. Let me see your collections list. Well, I said, okay, well, come back and talk to me when you're organized, because if you're not organized enough to maintain your own life, then you're not organized enough to maintain anyone else's, and I would be putting you in a position and setting you up for failure. And sure. I got a couple guys that still ask me to this day, can I do management? Are you organized, Ned? No, you're right, I'm not. But I'll let you know when I am. And it's been fucking years, Jim. I'm talking these same guys, but at least they're honest with themselves. I got to give them that much credit.
At least they're honest. Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, buddy, we've been having this conversation since 2019. You're still not organized? Like, make the fucking decision and make the move. Or just accept the fact that, you know what? I am never willing to take to forego the time and effort that it's going to take to get to a point where I've got homeostasis and I'm organized, and then I can maintain from there. So fuck it. That's just not the path I'm going to go down. And, that's fine too. But so many people with pipe dreams, and again, organization in this business, it will make or break a successful salesperson.
And in life, like you're saying, in life, it's crazy. Like, so I graduated, in the very middle, lower end of my class, and I don't think I had a 1.8 GPA. I was probably in the 2s somewhere. But like I had a good friend who was the valedictorian of our class. And he went to, I remember him being at every party I was at, and every social event, and every football game, or every, everything. He was there. But what he did is he went home and did his homework and then came to the party or the football game or whatever it was. I went home, screwed around for a couple of hours until the event, right? Until the football game or the party, went to it, and then came home and didn't do my homework, and it's that little slight tweak, right? It's not a big difference, right? But that was that organization in his life. He was disciplined in that, right? Just disciplined in that, disciplined in doing what he needed to do first. And then he got to have all the fun afterwards. And I look back at that, man, like as one of the, like,
you could have been a Harvard grad, Jim.
I could have been.
I tell my kid, I got 3 rules. I'm like, do the things you need to do before you do the things you want to do.
That's right.
Don't piss off your mom, and don't make me look like a shitty parent. And he violates all 3 of those rules just about every day. But one little trick I've got, and I tell guys, I finally got my wife using her phone counter. So this is an example. This is my phone counter, right?
Okay.
This is today. This is tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, the next. As you'll notice, the events are all the same. So one thing I learned is that oftentimes things come up throughout the day and I'm unable to fulfill the event, fulfill the responsibility that comes up in my calendar. And if I don't put it in as a reoccurring event daily, guess what? Poof, it's fucking gone. I forgot about it because I was consumed with solving some other problem that came up out of nowhere, and it never gets done. And so I tell my guys, like, I'm using my calendar now. I'm like, are you putting events as reoccurring events daily and looking at, no, I'm still not doing that. Well, you might as well not use a fucking calendar then.
Yeah.
Put them as a reoccurring event daily, and then you'll never drop the ball. But you're right. It's if you do the things you need to do before you do the things you want to do, life is easy. And it's funny. I heard a quote the other day, and it was like, if your way's not working, try going back and doing it the way your mom told you to. It's true.
It's true.
Organization.
And that's, with age comes wisdom, right?
It really does.
And looking back, it's crazy. But looking back, you get to connect those dots, right? Like, and a lot of times people don't get to connect those dots. What are your thoughts on mentorship?
I like to mentor people because I like to see, it's almost more rewarding now than making money. Seeing someone else see the light bulb go off. Yeah. You see them, you give them an opportunity. Because most people, when you hand them an opportunity, they're not ready for it, or they're not willing to take it anyway. But to hand someone an opportunity and have them grab a hold of it, and then have them take advantage of it. And then you see that light bulb go off, and they think to themselves, this could be me. I'm no longer going to be a slave to society. I'm no longer going to have to go to work every day and ask to take a piss, right? I'm no longer going to have to put in for a vacation 8 months ahead of time. I can essentially live my life the way I want to, earn the money that I want to, and do whatever I want with this one life that I have, instead of being bossed around and told what to do and told where to be and told how to live and told how to dress. I wear camo gym shorts and house shoes or gym shoes and a t-shirt every day. Now if I was, selling for Regal, I'd probably throw on a Regal shirt. I usually do for our meetings, but, for the most part, mentorship is those types of people. And again, in AA and NA, right? I'm a sponsor. And so it's funny. I don't know if you're familiar with recovery at all. I'm sure a lot of people in roofing are, but it's unfortunate, but it's kind of a joke at a certain point, right? The sponsees just generally don't make it. Most of them don't really want to get sober. I was at a point where, doing cocaine and going to strip clubs was fun at one point in my life. And then I was no longer doing cocaine. I was cooking it, smoking it, right? You call it freebasing, you call it crack. Really what it's called is crack. But other people, they like to call it freebasing. It makes them feel better about themselves, right? There's a less of a stigma there. And, when you're engaging in those types of drugs, you're dealing with a certain element of society, right? And you're no longer going to high-end strip clubs and hanging out with normal people. You're hanging out with the underbelly of society and people that are essentially willing to sink to a much lower level than I or you or a respectable member of society are in order to get what they want. And so that's what got me sober, was getting to a point where I finally looked in the mirror. My wife asked me, she's like, was it me? Was it was it your son? And I've got 3 children now. 2 have never even seen me engage in that kind of activity. 1 was very young. And I said, it was neither, honestly. One day I looked in the mirror and I thought to myself, you pathetic son of a bitch. right? Like when you're sober, you're a fairly respectable member of society, a fairly well-spoken, decent-looking, fairly entertaining individual. When you're high, you're a fucking monster weirdo. And so that's what got me sober. I got to a point where I did not enjoy that lifestyle anymore. And so it was kind of like margaritas, right? My whole life, alcohol wasn't really my thing, but I never drank margaritas because the sweet and sour, something about it felt like somebody's jabbing me in the stomach with an ice pick. I mean, it was a terrible feeling. And even when I was in my addiction days, if I didn't have anything at all and somebody said, you want a margarita, the pain of drinking the margarita did not outweigh the pleasure that I got from the effect of the alcohol. So I would say no. And so I got to the point where the pain of what I was doing no longer outweighed the pleasure. So it's not even a matter of like people really overcomplicate it. They're like sober, not so. I just didn't like the lifestyle anymore. A lot of guys in recovery, they still like the lifestyle. They're sober because society tells them to be sober, because their girlfriend tells them to be sober, because they're tired of being judged, because they're tired of making stupid decisions. But they don't really want to be sober, right? And when you find someone that really wants to be sober and really wants to change their life, it's inspiring. And it's the same way with building roofing salespeople. It's a very similar situation because, again, it's a second chance industry in a lot of ways. Most people, they don't come out of college going, all right, time to sell roofs, right? They either have some shitty job or some shitty life, or they fucked up, or they've gone to prison, or they've gotten into drugs, and they stumble onto the opportunity and they think, holy shit, this can't be real. And then they get into it and they see, wow, it can be real. It's a matter of how much does that person really want to take charge of their life? And in my opinion, the average citizen, the average human being doesn't. The average human being does not want the fucking ball when it's 4th and goal on the 1-yard line. A successful roofing sales rep and a successful human being, in my opinion, like if 4th and goal and the ball's on the 1, I want the fucking ball. Give me the fucking ball. I don't trust you with the fucking ball. I want the ball. I will get in that fucking end zone, I assure you. The average person's like, I don't want the fucking pressure. Take the ball. So the guys and girls that don't want the ball, their success is going to be very limited, if existent at all. And the guys that want the ball and are able, if they're the kind of guys that want the ball when it's 4th and goal, and they're also able to couple that with a certain level of self-discipline, they're going to be astronomically successful. And those two don't always go hand in hand, right? The superstars are oftentimes the most high maintenance, the most unorganized people. And so they have to have a certain level of humility and really understand, there's a science behind sales, right? You have to set up the sale. You have to be organized. You have to be strategic. You have to plan. It's like carpenters say, you got to measure twice, cut once. But mentoring these guys is a big deal because there's very few things in life that are more satisfying than watching someone wake up, take control of their life, and take their life in the direction that they want it to go, not the direction that they has to go, not the direction that society sends it in, not settling for, just whatever you can get, but controlling their destiny. There's not very many men out there or women that do that anymore. I'd say it's a lost, it seems like it's a lost trait almost. And so seeing the ones that do that, it's nice to have played a part in their, in their ability to wake up.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think the greatest insight is that you can share with our audience that's helped you find success in your roofing business?
Oh, well, I don't know. What's the greatest insight that I can share that's helped me find success? Success monetary? I mean, are we talking about volume of roofs built, gross revenue?
Within your definition of success, Paul?
I think we've already gone over it, really, Jim. It's, the biggest insight I can share that helped me with my success is I learned how to be self-disciplined, and I learned how to stop making excuses. Because when I was a salesman, I mean, even when I was a car salesman, right? Perfect example. My manager would always say, hey man, you need to follow up with people. You need to follow up. And I was like, dude, I'm always salesman of the month. I go pull people out of service. And I'm like, you going to drive that piece of shit out of here? Why don't we get you in something new? Did you know it's 2009 and we're fucking giving trucks away? right? I can probably get you a better deal than what you're driving on that dinosaur, right? So I always had the ability to create something out of nothing. So that's sort of a God-given ability that I'm very fortunate to have had, but I was missing the self-discipline aspect of that. So I was never going to be able to take that God-given talent and be a success because I didn't have the discipline to make it. You could use this example with any profession, any industry. I always tell my kid, probably the most talented football, baseball, basketball players aren't even in the league. They're working at the fucking store down the road because they weren't self-disciplined enough. They didn't work hard enough. They had that God-given natural ability that allowed them to get themselves in and out of situations. And at some point, middle school, high school, or college, they fucked it up too bad. And, they weren't able to continue on to the next level. And so in any profession, self-discipline, which an organization goes hand in hand, is one of the most imperative character traits to success. You might not be able to out-talent anyone, but you can outwork anyone. And if you're working smarter, as opposed to harder, or you're working both, smarter and harder, anyone can be successful. And so that would be probably the best insight I'd share, because that's what really taught me a lot about myself. When I was in the car business, again, my follow-up was terrible, and they'd say, "Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?" My excuse was, I was late because this happened, and I was late for lunch because then I didn't follow up with this person because you wouldn't believe it. This happened, and this happened, and this happened. And then when I got in this industry and I told you, and I lost those 3 deals, I thought to myself, man, who do you fucking making excuses for? You don't even really have a boss anymore. So there's no one to make I fucked up. How about that, boss? How about I'm unorganized and I'm not punctual and I'm fucked up and I need to fix that problem? And then I actually went and fixed it. And again, that the people that have the desire and the motivation and willingness to do that and create the life that they want are the ones that are going to live the lives that they want to live. The other 95% of society, with the exception of people that are independently wealthy, they're going to settle. They're going to settle in relationships, settle in a job, settle for a car, settle for a vacation. They're going to settle for just about everything in life because it's fear, man. There's two driving factors in this world. It's fear and love. And if you live your life in fear, then you're not living your life. Your life is living you. It sounds lame, but you're just kind of walking down a path. You're not creating it. So
awesome, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more revenue through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com to get a copy of the book, The Best Known Roofer. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. Thanks for listening.